If you hold dual citizenship or you're thinking about getting a second passport, I need you to pause everything for a moment, because 2026 has introduced major modifications that could quietly affect your travel, your taxes, your documentation, and in rare situations, even your ability to move freely across borders. The regulations have shifted, reporting rules have tightened, and passport procedures are changing in ways many people still don't know about. If you're not aware of these new expectations, you could face delays at airports, unexpected questions at border control, financial penalties, or situations that become far more stressful than they needed to be. What I'm about to share with you is not meant to scare you. It's meant to prepare you. These updates matter because they affect millions of people around the world who live, study, work, visit family, and build their futures across more than one country. So stay with me until the end. Take a deep breath and let's walk through this together slowly, clearly, and calmly. My name is Sophia, and my goal here is simple: to make complex ration information feel understandable, grounded, and manageable. Today, I'm going to explain what's changing, who is affected, when these updates matter, and most importantly, what you should and should not do next. I know immigration topics can feel overwhelming. The words sound complicated, the rules don't always seem fair, and sometimes it feels like one wrong step could create big problems. If you've ever worried about using the wrong passport at the airport, not knowing what the government expects you to report, or whether a change in law could suddenly affect your status, you're not alone. Many people feel the same way. The good news is this: information brings clarity, and clarity brings calm. Not every change applies to everyone. Not every update is negative, and understanding rules ahead of time gives you confidence instead of fear. So, let's start at the foundation and build upward from there. Before we talk about new reporting requirements or passport changes, it's important to understand what dual citizenship really means in simple human language. Dual citizenship or dual nationality means you are legally recognized as a citizen of two countries at the same time. That can happen in different ways. Some people are born in one country to parents from another. Some marry and gain citizenship through their spouse. Some naturalize after living abroad while still keeping their original citizenship. Others have children born overseas who automatically gain citizenship in more than one country from birth. For many people, dual citizenship is a blessing. It allows easier travel. It keeps families connected. It preserves cultural identity and opens opportunities for work, education, and security. In most situations, especially in the United States, dual citizenship is allowed. The U.S. recognizes that you can hold another nationality without automatically giving up your U.S. citizenship. But, and this is where things become important, having two citizenships at times means having two sets of responsibilities. Two governments may want certain information from you. Two countries may have rules about passports, travel records, taxes, or reporting that don't always look the same. And as technology improves and countries share more data than ever before, the systems that track travel, identity, and financial transparency have become more connected. That's why these 2026 updates matter. They're not about punishing people. They are about security, identity verification, fraud prevention, and financial reporting. But when systems tighten, people who don't understand the rules may accidentally create problems for themselves. A missed form, a passport that doesn't match another document, a trip booked without checking validity dates. Small details can cause big headaches if you simply didn't know. So as we continue, remember this: dual citizenship itself is not the problem. Having more than one passport is legal in many cases. What matters is awareness, accuracy, and honesty. If something feels confusing, you are not alone. Many highly educated people struggle to understand immigration rules, and that's okay. My goal is to guide you calmly through each update, help you recognize where you might need to pay attention, and remind you that information is your strongest protection. We'll move step by step, and I'll explain what changed, who it affects, and how to stay prepared without fear. Let's begin talking about one of the biggest areas where people with dual citizenship need to be much more aware: reporting requirements. over the last few years, governments around the world, including the United States, have strengthened the systems they use to track financial transparency and identity reporting. This isn't about targeting immigrants or dual citizens specifically. It's mainly about preventing fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and misuse of international financial systems. But the reality is, when rules tighten, ordinary people sometimes get caught in the middle simply because they didn't understand what needed to be reported. If you are a U.S. citizen, whether you live inside the United States or outside the country, the U.S. expects you to report your worldwide income. That means if you earn money in another country, have a bank account overseas, or hold investments outside the U.S., there are times when those be disclosed to U.S. authorities, even if taxes are also paid in another country. Dual citizenship doesn't remove those obligations, and in some situations it can make reporting slightly more complex. For some people, the idea of reporting foreign accounts feels scary. But in reality, most people are not being punished for having a bank account back home. The real issue happens when someone has accounts, assets, or business interests, and doesn't report them when they legally should. That's where delays, penalties, and stressful letters from authorities can begin. Over recent years, data sharing agreements between countries have become stronger. Financial institutions in many parts of the world now cooperate with the United States when they detect accounts owned by U.S. persons. That means it's getting harder and honestly unnecessary to try to hide things. What matters isn't fear. What matters is clarity. If you are unsure whether something needs to be reported, that doesn't make you a criminal. It simply means you need accurate information. Keeping copies of financial statements, knowing where your money is, and staying honest when filling out forms already protects you more than you realize. And remember, not everyone is affected in the same way. Many people with dual citizenship have simple situations and never run into problems. If you feel lost or confused, you are absolutely not alone. Now, let's shift into something every dual citizen eventually experiences: travel, passports, and border rules. This is an area where misunderstandings are extremely common, and yet the rule itself is actually quite simple. If you are a U.S. citizen, the United States requires you to enter and leave the country using your U.S. passport. Even if you also hold citizenship in another country, even if you have a valid visa in that other passport, and even if you travel with both passports in your hand, when you step up to U.S. immigration, the document you present must be your U.S. passport. For many people, this feels strange at first. They ask, why can't I just use my other passport? The answer is that the U.S. views you as a U.S. citizen first when you are entering the country. Using another passport to enter could create confusion, unnecessary questioning, or delays, because from the U.S. perspective, you're trying to enter as a foreign visitor when in reality you're not. At the same time, the other country where you also hold citizenship often has a similar expectation. Most countries prefer that their citizens enter and exit using their own national passport as well. So, in practical terms, dual citizenship usually means using one passport when you leave one country and the other passport when you arrive in the other. For example, a dual citizen traveling between two countries may leave one country using that country's passport, then present the second passport upon arrival in the other. This can sometimes feel confusing, but it's normal. Where problems happen is when a passport is expired, nearly expired, or contains a name that doesn't match other documents. Add to that new passport security features, biometric checks, and stronger verification systems, and you begin to understand why travelers are being asked more questions than before. None of this automatically means you're in trouble. Often it simply means systems are verifying identity more carefully. One more thing to keep in mind is passport validity. Many countries require that your passport be valid for at least 6 months beyond your intended stay. Airlines check this rule before boarding because they can be fined if they fly someone who has later refused entry. So even if you think my passport still has a few months left, a gate agent or immigration officer may see it differently. Renewing early is almost always safer than waiting until the last minute, especially if you hold 2 passports, and will be switching between them while traveling. Staying calm, staying prepared, and plan. Ing ahead prevents most problems long before they ever reach the airport desk. Another area that quietly changed for many travelers, including dual citizens, involves security checks and biometric verification. Over the last few years, passports around the world have begun, including more advanced security features, digital chips, and biometric data designed to protect identity and prevent fraud. You may notice new machines at airports scanning faces, fingerprints, or digital passport chips instead of relying only on manual stamping. For most travelers, these systems actually make travel safer and sometimes faster, but they also mean that mismatched information becomes easier for authorities to notice. If your name is written differently on two passports, if your date of birth records don't match exactly, or if past travel entries don't appear consistent, the system may flag you for extra questions. That doesn't automatically mean you did something wrong. Often it simply means the system wants to verify that two records truly belong to the same person. Technology is catching small details that older manual systems often ignored, and sometimes that can feel intimidating when you read the person being questioned. In moments like that, the most important thing is calm, honesty. Answer clearly. Show your documents. Explain briefly why something looks different. Maybe your name changed after marriage. Maybe one country formats names differently. Maybe you renewed your passport recently and the number changed. These are normal human situations. Extra screening doesn't automatic. I mean a problem is coming. It usually means identity is being checked more carefully because the new systems rely on accuracy. And remember, countries are increasingly sharing travel information with each other. Border control may already see where you traveled last month or which passport you used on your previous trip. That's not meant to punish you. It's part of global security and fraud. Prevention. Awareness simply helps you avoid panic when something takes a few extra minutes. If an officer asks questions, it isn't a personal attack. It's part of their process. Breathe, stay respectful, and let the system do what it needs to do. Now let's quietly shift to a topic that worries some dual citizens: military service obligations in certain countries. Not every country requires it. Some nations still have compulsory service for their citizens, including dual nationals who may not even live there full-time. If you hold citizenship in a country that has mandatory conscription laws, you could technically be expected to follow those rules when you visit or reside there, especially if you are of eligible age. For many families, this comes as a surprise. Someone may have grown up in another country, barely speak the language, and suddenly discover that they are still considered eligible for service. It can feel frightening and confusing, especially when those obligations conflict with work, education, or family life in the United States. From the U.S. perspective, dual citizenship alone does not automatically create a problem. However, serving in certain positions, or NG, aging with a foreign military under specific circumstances can complicate things, particularly if there is political tension or security risk involved. These cases are rare, but serious enough that they deserve awareness. If your other country has military requirements, the best approach is not to panic and not to ignore it either. Contact the embassy or consulate of that country and ask clear questions about your status. Many nations have exemptions, deferments, waivers, or special rules for citizens who primarily live abroad. And if you feel uncertain about whether fulfilling or refusing those obligations could affect your situation in the United States, speaking with a qualified professional can give you reassurance before acting. The most important message is simple. Don't assume, don't fear, and don't make rush decisions. Seek information, understand your position, and move carefully. Another area that raises questions for many people with dual citizenship is voting and political involvement. A lot of people worry that casting a vote in their other country might somehow threaten their status in the United States. In most cases, it doesn't. As a U.S. citizen, you have the to vote in U.S. elections, whether you live inside the country or abroad. And many other countries also allow their citizens to vote while living overseas. So, it's possible for dual citizens to legally vote in both systems as long as each vote follows that country's laws. Where complications sometimes appear is not with voting itself, but with deeper political participation, running for office. In a foreign government, accepting certain government roles or participating in sensitive political positions can create questions about loyalty, obligations, or intent. These situations are rare, and they are usually evaluated on a case-by-case basis, but they are worth understanding before stepping into something serious. If you ever find yourself unsure, pause before acting, gather information, and ask questions rather than assuming everything is automatically okay. Honesty is always your safest path. When forms ask whether you hold another citizenship or whether you've participated in any government roles, answer truthfully. Problems usually arise not because someone voted, but because something important wasn't disclosed when asked. Staying transparent prevents issues before they begin. Now, let's talk about children, because dual citizenship often begins at birth, and parents sometimes don't realize how important early documentation is. When a child is born outside the United States to a U.S. citizen parent, that child may still be eligible for U.S. citizenship from birth, depending on the parent's history and circumstances. At the same time, many countries automatically grant CI, citizenship to any child born on their soil. That means a baby can become a dual citizen from day one, without anyone really planning it. The challenge appears later when the child grows up and needs proof. If parents never reported the birth to the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate, or never obtained a formal record confirming citizenship, that child may face unexpected barriers when applying for a U.S. passport, enrolling in school, traveling, or proving identity. It can feel heartbreaking when a young adult discovers their documentation was never completed properly, not because of wrongdoing, but because their parents didn't know the process existed. The good news is that awareness helps. Reporting a birth abroad, keeping copies of important records, applying for passports early, and making names and dates match across documents protects children from stress later. And even if the paperwork wasn't completed at the time of birth, it doesn't always mean everything is lost. There may still be paths to correct, confirm, or claim status with the right guidance and patience. The key message is simple. Document early, double-check details, and keep everything in one safe place. Children depend on adults to protect their future identity. Taking the time now prevents confusion, complicated interviews, and emotional frustration later in life. Some people with dual citizenship eventually wonder whether they should give up one of their nationalities, usually because they feel overwhelmed by rules, paperwork, or taxes. Renouncing citizenship sounds simple when you hear it discussed online, but in reality, it is one of the most serious and permanent decisions a person can make. Once you formally renounce a citizenship, you are not simply taking a break from it. You are closing a door that often cannot be reopened. You lose the automatic right to live, work, vote, and receive protections from that country. You may also lose the ability to pass citizenship to your children in the future. In some cases, people renounce first and only later realize how deeply it affects their sense of identity, family connections, or safety options during global crisis. There are also practical steps most people don't realize exist. Interviews, fees, paperwork, final tax filings, and sometimes an emotional process that feels heavier than expected. None of this means renunciation is always wrong. For a small number of people, it genuinely makes life simpler. But it should never be rushed, never done out of fear, and never decided based only on something heard in a vid or read on social media. When decisions affect your entire life and your children's lives, it is wise to slow down, ask questions, and fully understand the long-term consequences before doing anything that cannot be undone. With all of this information, it can feel like there are 1,000 rules moving at once. But the truth is, staying prepared usually comes down to a few simple habits. Keep your passports valid and avoid letting them get too close to expiration. Renew early, not late. Make sure names, dates of birth, and spelling are consistent across passports, birth records, and travel documents. Keep your immigration papers, tax records, and important certificates together in one safe place so they're easy to find when needed. If you have bank accounts or assets in another country, know where they are, keep statements, and don't ignore letters or notices. When something on a form confuses you, don't guess. Pause, research, or ask someone qualified. Keep a small record of your travel history, especially if you use different passports when entering different countries. That simple note can save you hours later if questions arise. And most importantly, remember that none owe. This is about being perfect. It's about being aware, honest, and organized. Immigration systems can feel intimidating, but preparation turns fear into confidence. You don't need to panic. You don't need to figure everything out overnight. You simply need to stay informed, move carefully, and take things one step at a time. Travel becomes even more interesting when dual citizens visit countries where they do not hold citizenship at all. In those situations, deciding which passport to use usually comes down to practicality. Many travelers choose the passport that offers the easiest entry, the fewest visa requirements, or shorter lines at immigration. For example, some passports allow visa-free entry to certain regions, while others require advanced permits. The U.S. passport is powerful in many parts of the world, but there are still destinations where different passports can actually make travel smoother. What matters most is checking entry rules before booking flights instead of at the airport gate. Each country sets its own conditions, and those rules can change. Some require online authorization before arrival. Others expect proof of return tickets, hotel reservations, or VACSI. Nation records. Dual citizens sometimes assume having two options guarantees flexibility, but it still requires planning. Always make sure the passport you plan to use has enough validity left, enough blank pages, and matches your ticket details. When immigration officers see confidence and consistency, travel becomes easier. When something doesn't line up, conversations become longer than expect. And that stress is completely avoidable with a little preparation. Now, let's talk briefly about government employment and security clearances because this is another area where dual citizenship sometimes brings extra scrutiny. Many people dream of working in public service, law enforcement, defense, research, or other sensitive roles in the United States. Holding dual citizenship doesn't automatically disqualify someone, but it can lead to deeper background checks. Authorities may look at your ties to the other country, such as relatives who live there, property you own, financial accounts, or past travel patterns. The concern isn't punishment. It's simply about understanding whether there could be conflicting obligations or pressure from another government. Some positions, especially highly classified ones, may expect you to choose one citizenship over another. That decision can be deeply personal, emotional, and complicated. If this ever becomes part of your journey, it's important to slow down and think, not panic. Many dual citizens successfully work in government roles after clear explanations, transparency, and careful review. Honesty once again becomes the most powerful tool. Trying to hide another citizenship is what usually creates serious problems, not the citizenship itself. When you look at everything we've discussed, passports, reporting rules, travel requirements, documentation for children, security screenings, and all the what-if questions, it's completely natural to feel a little overwhelmed. Immigration journeys are rarely just paperwork. They carry hope, fear, sacrifice, family dreams, and sometimes years of waiting. Many people live between two cultures, two languages, two systems, and that can feel heavy at times. If you've ever sat awake at night wondering whether you filled something out correctly or whether a letter from immigration might change your future, I want you to know something important. You are not alone. Millions of people all over the world are navigating the same uncertainties, asking the same questions, and quietly carrying the same anxiety. And most of them, just like you, are simply trying to follow the rules, protect their families, and build stable lives. That's why staying informed matters so much. Information doesn't solve every problem, but it turns fear into preparation and confusion into clarity. When you hear about a new rule, you can pause, listen, and understand whether it applies to you rather than rushing into panic. When something feels unclear, you can ask for guidance instead of guessing. And when your journey feels tiring, you can remind yourself that progress with immigration is often slow. But it does move forward. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. You are doing your best inside systems that are complex, even for professionals. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply stay calm, stay organized, and continue learning one step at a time. As we wrap up TOTA Wise Update, let's bring everything back to the core message. Dual citizenship is not a mistake. It is not a problem by itself. But 2026 brings stronger reporting expectations, more careful passport verification, and systems that now communicate with each other more than ever before. That means small details matter, renewing early matters, being honest matters, keeping documents organized matters, and making decisions slowly, thoughtfully, and with awareness protects you far more than fear ever will. If something you heard today applies to you, don't rush, don't assume, and don't panic. Simply note it, learn more, and move forward carefully. Immigration journeys can be stressful, complicated, and emotional, but they are also journeys of courage and resilience. Staying informed is one of the best ways to protect your freedom to travel, your ability to plan, and your peace of mind. If today's update helped you feel clearer or calmer, I'm truly glad. Sharing information like this can help others too. So, if you feel comfortable, consider liking this video or passing it along to someone who may benefit from it. And if you want steady, calm explanations of U.S. immigration news, visa P dates, and citizenship guidance, you're always welcome to stay connected here. If you have a question, an experience, or a situation you're unsure about, feel free to share in the comments. Your story might help someone else realize they're not alone. Thank you for being here with me today, for trusting me with your time, and for staying informed about something so important to your life and your future. I'm Sophia, and I'll see you in the next update where we continue walking through this journey together, step by gentle.